Welcome back to A Jeweler's Life. Today we're talking about engagement ring buying tips from the point of view of a jeweler. So, obviously, this is what I do every single day. I get guys that come in, typically in like their early 20s, that are shopping around for engagement rings and they are terrified. They're terrified because one, they don't know anything about jewelry, anything about engagement rings. And two, this is probably the biggest decision and the biggest purchase of their life up until this point. So, what I want to do in this video is go over kind of my process with clients whenever they do come in. I am a very just chill, like low pressure. I hate pressure. I know what it's like to walk into a jewelry store and them trying to get you to finance something for 150% interest over 75,000 months. And then you walk out of there not knowing exactly what happened, knowing you went in just to look and you walked out with a ring and you don't even have a girlfriend yet. So my number one tip, shop local and shop small. And I can't say enough how important it is to shop local and shop small when it comes to jewelry, when it comes specifically to engagement rings, because I also see both sides of the coin. Yes, when everyone's happy and everything works out, but also when things don't work out and now you're stuck with that ring and what do you do? And so the reason I say shop local and shop small is because that's where you're going to get your best deals. Number one thing you can do is stay away from mall stores and big box stores. Keep this in mind. Whenever you're shopping with somebody who's spending $20,000, $30,000 a month in rent, or they have a $150,000 monthly marketing budget for their big box name, that's what you're paying for at the end of the day. I can't tell you how many times I've had customers come in or friends, relatives come and show me this ring that they got that they spent $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 on, knowing that maybe I would have sold the same exact thing for a fifth, sometimes a fourth of the price. So what you have to understand whenever you're shopping at a big box store or a mall store is typically you're dealing with a salesperson. And truthfully and honestly, this may be a little bit of a controversial take for a lot of jewelers that have staff, but the reality is that sales staff, whenever you're buying jewelry as a consumer from a jeweler's point of view, is the worst thing that you can see. The best thing that you can see is when there's a jeweler that's actually helping you. And when I say jeweler, I mean the person that's working on the pieces, that's making the pieces, that's designing it. Because what you have to understand, whenever you go into a big box store, that person's been given a 2-week crash course on how to sell jewelry, how to meet their financing quotas, and how to meet their sales quota, because they are on commission and they need to make that sale. So ultimately, hate to say it, but if somebody has to make that sale for their paycheck to depend on it, and guess what? They truly probably don't have your best interest in mind. What they'd like to do is go ahead and get that sale out of the way. I'm not going to name all these big box stores, but you guys know what every kiss begins with, and he went to wherever. But here's the thing. You're paying for those ads on TV. Go to your small local family jeweler. If you can find a generational jeweler, even better. Here at the Diamond Gallery, we're 4th generation, and I can tell you that, don't get me wrong, I have to make money and put food on my family's table at the end of the day, but our markups are nowhere near what big box store markups are like. All right, now that's all the big box stuff. Let's get that out of the way. The next most important tip when you're shopping for an engagement ring, whether you're doing the shopping or you're helping your boyfriend kind of give him some ideas, the biggest thing is metal. What kind of metal do you want? Do you want gold? Do you want platinum? Do you want silver? There are also some alternative metals. Typically for engagement rings, I really recommend kind of sticking, if budget allows, to gold and silver and platinum. I don't know about, there's a lot of other metals out there, like tungsten and palladium and stainless and all of that, they typically don't work that great for just engagement rings. There's not a lot of intricacy that can happen from a jeweler's perspective when you're working with one of those metals. So when we're talking about gold, the important thing is to decide what color gold you want, whether it's rose gold, yellow gold, or white gold. Those are the three main kinds. Don't get me wrong, there are other colors. You can even do something like we've done green gold rings for customers, which are pretty cool. Essentially, all you're doing is you're mixing different metals with the gold to get a different color. Once you've decided the metal that you want and the color that you want that metal in, the next step is the stone. So, of course, we all know right now that the big debate is natural diamonds versus lab-grown diamonds. There's a lot going on right now in the jewelry world where literally natural diamonds, the entire market itself is essentially being cut in half by consumers now wanting lab-grown diamonds. So you have to make that decision, ultimately up to you. Go on our channel, look at the difference videos. We have those out there for you to kind of get a good idea of what the difference between both of those are. Then another thing to consider are gemstones. Do you want an emerald instead of a diamond, or a ruby, or a sapphire, or morganite is pretty popular as well. And I mean, you can go, we just did a Savorite ring for somebody. So there's a ton of options out there when it comes to gemstones if you're looking for a specific color. And then you also have moissanite. Moissanite is good. I think it's kind of going by the wayside because lab-grown diamonds are so inexpensive that it's still more expensive than moissanite, but it's almost close enough to where usually if you can afford a moissanite, you should be able to afford a similar size lab-grown diamond. And then let's talk about price range. Price range is super important. And the reason I say that, whenever customers come in, one of the first questions that I ask them is, hey, is there a budget that you have or a price range that you'd like to stick in mind? And the reason why I do this specifically is you have to keep this in mind. I have rings here that go from $500 to $150,000. So I need to get a good idea of what we're working with. I need to know if we're in, the $500 range or if we're in the $150,000 range and kind of everything in between. So don't be embarrassed or shy about sharing what your budget is, because there's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, the biggest thing when you go into a jewelry store, you need to feel comfortable there. If you feel like they're being a little uppity, a little uptight, or a little pushy, I recommend you go somewhere else. Go somewhere where you feel comfortable, somewhere where you don't feel like there's a pressure for you to buy something specific, just for them to help you transition to whatever engagement ring, whether it's a custom one or one that they have in the showcase, but it's something that they help you along the way rather than push you into it. My next recommendation is go custom always. If you can, and if you're not planning on getting engaged tomorrow, spend a little bit more time and go custom. Think about this. This is my number one pet peeve with big box stores and with jewelry brands and just all this mass produced stuff. Getting married for most of us is one of the biggest decisions we make in our entire life. I mean, this literally, who you end up with, who you marry, is going to, for the foreseeable future, for the rest of your life, literally shape every single moment in your life. So why would you grab some mass-produced ring that was made in India or China in a sweatshop that's, some underpaid person was on an assembly line and just popping these things out one after the other? Why not just spend the time? I mean, it's supposed to symbolize, like I said, the most important decision in your life. So why not spend the extra time, find a good custom jeweler, find a designer, somebody who truly does things in-house, which leads me to my next point. Make sure that whoever you're shopping with, that it's an in-house jeweler, an in-house designer, because a lot of times what happens is, for instance, let's say you go to a big box store or even a lot of just independent stores. You go in there and you ask them, or you tell them that you want something custom made, and what they end up doing is that they'll take notes on what you want. Then they send those notes to some designer in India or China, or to some company, some big manufacturing company who has designers in India and China. And they go, basically, it's a never ending game of telephone, where sometimes, a lot of times, what I have found is that customers don't get exactly what they want 100%. And it's because what you're telling that person is being communicated 3 or 4 people down the line, and every little change, every little adjustment that you want to make to that design just keeps going back and forth, back and forth. And so a lot of things kind of get lost in communication, sometimes in translation between different languages. So my recommendation is try and find a local jeweler that actually does in-house CAD design. Here at the Diamond Gallery, I take care of all of our designs. That's what I recommend whenever it comes to something custom. Just focus on that. Make sure that it's somebody who knows what they're doing and that you can be confident in their skills. Make sure you know what custom jewelry means. I've seen this a lot over the years where somebody will tell me, hey, this jeweler custom made this for me. And it turns out that what they did was they ordered a ring and a head and a setting, and they soldered it together and they called it custom. Well, it's not custom. That's customized, or as I like to call it, Frankensteined, because you can tell. I mean, there's no way that you're not going to be able to tell where those solder joints are. And again, just keep this in mind. If multiple pieces are being put together, you're literally creating weak points within the ring. So it's better for it to be casted as one single piece rather than multiple pieces put together. My golden rule for engagement ring shopping is do what works for you, not what works for your friend, not what works for your mom, not what works for your uncle. It's what works for you, not for her best friend and her friends. It's what works for your budget, what works for your taste, what works for your fiance's taste. Focus on that. Jewelry is something that's so specific and so special and so individual. If you have multiple people trying to influence a design, guess what? It's gonna look like multiple people tried to design one piece, and it's not gonna come out looking good. Family jewelry is something that goes a long way. Don't think that just because your Nana has this ring and the diamond's okay and it's kind of falling apart, the ring by the wayside, and you don't really like the way that it looks, that you can't use it. If you find a reputable in-house jeweler that makes things in-house, they can take that piece of jewelry, that ring, that necklace, that pendant, whatever it is, take the stones out, melt down the gold, and use that to make a new custom engagement ring for you. And guys, these are questions you have to ask yourself. Does she have Pinterest? Check her board, check her Pinterest wall, whatever it is, check it. Every single time I get a young guy in here and they have no idea, they know they want to marry this girl and they want to get engaged, but they don't know what she likes. First thing I ask is, does she have Pinterest? The next thing I ask is, does she have a sister? Does she have a best friend? How do you communicate with her mom? How does she like, does her mom know what she likes? So those are very important questions as a guy to make sure that you know ahead of time, because it's not so much about you doing the research and finding that specific design that she likes, but it is about you getting in contact with the people who she's already told this to. Because trust me, every girl has rings on their Pinterest wall. They have a engagement board or something where they've put different ideas. They've texted their friends, their sisters, their mom about rings that they love or pieces of jewelry that they've seen on Instagram or on YouTube or on Pinterest. So make sure that you communicate with those people to try and get the best idea possible. Something else to consider is, what does she wear? So if your girlfriend wears all white gold jewelry, you've never seen her wear anything yellow, unless she specifically has told somebody she wanted a yellow gold or a rose gold ring, guess what? Go with white. You always kind of want to play it a little safe if you don't have a lot of information. So that's why a lot of the times I recommend solitaires, because there's so much more that you can do with a solitaire down the line. You can add things to it, you can change things about it, but there's just a lot that you can do with that. And my final tip is, do you want her to be a part of the process? So this is really important. I've actually seen this a lot more lately. I know it's not the most traditional thing, but what I've seen is a lot of couples coming in and he brings her in. We kind of get a good idea of what she likes, and essentially she gives me enough notes to where I can write things down. And then at a later date, come back, we go over the notes, we go over what she liked, and we make a custom ring based off of that. That way she is involved, but it's still a surprise. She doesn't know when it's going to happen or what the final ring is going to look like. She knows that you're on it, which is nice. That way you don't get elbow bumps all the time. Whenever one of her friends gets engaged, she at least knows that you're working on it. So those are my tips for buying an engagement ring. I know that's a lot to take in, but I also know that this is a very important decision in your life. So make sure that you're well equipped, that you do your research, and feel free to reach out to us, whether it's on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. You can call us, you can text us, whatever it is. That way we can help you with your engagement process. Till next time, A Jeweler's Life out.